Pushing the limits on a Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, I get a lot of legal questions all the time. I'm not an attorney, but here's what I can tell you. I try to get high profile attorneys on this show all the time. If you watch this show, Gloria Allred comes on this show all the time. I've had Robert Shapiro on this show before, no relation to yours truly. And I like to get their legal minds, their expertise on a number of different topics. Now, even if you don't live here in Las Vegas, you've probably heard of this guy. He grew up in Philadelphia. He's been in Las Vegas for close to 50 years. And attorney Ed Bernstein has been doing this for a very, very, very long time. And, you know, you probably hear his commercials everywhere. I'm a big Vegas Golden Knights fan. So every single time somebody goes to the penalty box, it's always Ed Bernstein's name that I see. Hopefully it's not the Vegas Golden Knights that are in the penalty box. Hopefully it's somebody on the other team. But it certainly is a pleasure to have him in studio now. Attorney Ed Bernstein joining us. Mr. Bernstein, I really do appreciate you being here. How are you?
I'm great, Brian. And yourself?
I'm doing all right.
You're working hard here.
I'm working hard. The news cycle's a bit busy these days, as you know. Before I ask you some, legal questions about Trump, and can you give people a little bit of background? How many years have you been practicing law?
Yeah, well, it's close to 50. And
Yeah.
really makes me feel old to even say that. And so I arrived here, it was 1976. When I arrived in Vegas in 76, the most memorable instance I have of Vegas was I remember driving on Boulder Highway, and we had no speed limit. You could drive literally 110. No speed limit. It wasn't until, you may recall, we had, or maybe you're too young, we had the Arab oil embargo in the late 70s. And as a result of that, the federal government put a national speed limit for all the states of 55 miles an hour. And if you didn't enact the speed limit, you weren't going to get federal funds from the gas tax. So that was the first time that we had speed limits on some of these
That was a
streets
long
in
time
Las
ago.
Vegas.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And now here you are today as one of the most successful attorneys, not really just in Las Vegas, but in the entire country. You're a household name. And that's why I wanted you to come in. And I wanted to. Now, full disclosure, he ran as a Democrat for senator years back. And so you're pretty much in tune with what's going on politically, nationally, and locally. I want to ask you this to start.
Yeah.
What do you make of the fact that the Republican chair right now in Nevada, Mike McDonald, as I like to call him Ronald McDonald, allegedly put forth this fake electorate scheme, he and others. And by the way, it's not just Nevada, as you know. Donald Trump, is in a lot of trouble for doing this. What do you make of that? The fact that the people that are running the Republican Party today in this state probably, allegedly, put forth this fake electorate scheme.
Well, let me cite my disclaimer first. He's not convicted of anything.
Right. Allegedly.
Right?
Allegedly.
Well, allegedly he's done this, correct?
Yes, correct.
But he is, look, I've known Mike for a long time. I remember Mike when he worked for Metro, and he was on the bicycle patrol downtown in Metro, became a city councilman. He used to live right behind my house over in the Alta and Rancho area. Like him a lot as a guy. I mean, I've never agreed with Mike McDonald politically on anything, but he's always been able to converse with him and talk politics in a civil way with Michael. I think the act of people in an unthinking way, just stepping into line, tooth and nail behind whatever Trump requires is horrific for this country.
I agree with you, and I believe everything you said. I don't know Mike McDonald personally. I can only go by the way he acts and what he says, and I'm a friend of Amy Tarkanian, who does this show all the time. Lovely lady.
Also a quality person.
Right, but she has not done, and she would not have done, in my opinion, the types of things that Mike McDonald says and does. She used to be a Trump supporter. She's tired of it. She's one of those old school Republicans, I call her now. She used to be a Trump supporter. Why do you think somebody who you described and you had a personal relationship with and probably still do as a decent guy would, bow to Trump? What happened to these people in the last 6 or 7 years?
Well, there's a lot of adjectives that fall into that category, Brian. And I'm not suggesting any of these are specific to Michael.
Right.
But greed is one way. Power is another word. Fear is another word. Um, I've learned in politics that once somebody gets elected, the most important thing to them becomes staying in power.
Right.
I don't know why. I mean, I think a lot of people are well intended when they begin a campaign and begin to run.
Right.
But you get stuck in this situation once you're elected, and your and your ability to be objective.
Right.
You know, you lose your ability because you have a constituency around you, and in order to stay elected, you have to be supportive of that constituency, whether it's Republicans on the right, whether it's unions on the left. It doesn't matter. I mean,
Right.
you're obligated to them.
Sure. So I hear a lot of people when I use the term liable rapist, liable sexual abuser. A jury of Donald Trump's peers found that Donald Trump is liable for sexual abuse, sexual battery. The judge in the case characterized it as rape. So when I call somebody a liable rapist or a liable sexual abuser, from a legal standpoint, is that factually accurate?
Well, I think there's a difference between civil and criminal liability. I don't think Donald Trump has ever been convicted
He has not.
on criminal
Correct.
activity, right?
Correct.
So when you're talking about the words you're using are criminal term. Actually, it's a mix. The liable part of it is a civil term. The rape part of it is a criminal term. So they're not really interchangeable. I really do think that we're going to have a very difficult time convicting Donald Trump of any criminal charge.
Really? Why do you say that?
Well, because you need a unanimous jury to do it. I find it almost laughable to think that you can find 12 jurors that can be unanimous in a decision to
It's
put
hard.
Donald Trump in
I agree with
prison.
you. It's not easy. What I've said is he's facing 91 felony counts. In my personal opinion, he's going to be a convicted felon. I'm not saying 91 counts. I'm not saying 50 counts or 10 counts. I'd have to think that they're going to find something. Let's try to go through them one by one, and I want to get your opinions on it. Let's start with the classified documents, which has been in the news, right? Because I don't know if you saw any of the hearings yesterday. They were interesting, right? And it's interesting to me because Ted Lieu, who I have a lot of respect for, made the differences between the Joe Biden situation and the Donald Trump situation. For example, Donald Trump is alleged to have directed his lawyer to lie to the FBI, destroy classified documents, personal assistant to hide documents, and now we have this camera footage that apparently he asked to be destroyed so the FBI didn't see it. He showed a classified map to an ongoing military operation to a campaign aide who didn't have the clearance. Obviously, he engaged in conspiracy to obstruct justice. None of those things yesterday Joe Biden was accused of because he didn't do any of those things. I guess could you make the argument, Mr. Bernstein, that did he make mistakes, Joe Biden? Sure. Was he a little bit careless? Sure. But here's a big difference. He cooperated. He cooperated with the DOJ while Donald Trump defied a subpoena for over a year. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely agree. There's a significant difference. Of course, nobody was talking about that in the hearing yesterday. But hopefully the Democrats will make that case in distinguishing the conduct of both individuals after the fact.
Right.
Look, I don't know if Trump intentionally brought these documents to his house and to his country club. I don't know if Biden did. But once they're on notice of, hey, you're not supposed to possess these documents, they're under a moral and legal obligation to cooperate in returning them.
Have you ever been to Mar-a-Lago, by the way? I'm just out of curiosity.
I have not been inside. I have been
If he invited you there, would you go?
No.
No.
I had a horrible experience with Donald Trump personally.
Please share if you can. Anything you can tell us, I would love to hear, because I hear from all sorts of people that have had different types of experiences with Trump.
In year 2000, I was the Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate. When you're running for the U.S. Senate, you travel a lot. You have to raise money. I essentially took a hiatus from my law firm for a year and a half to go run for the U.S. Senate. Now, I ran for the U.S. Senate, Brian, because at that time I had a daughter who was chronically ill. She had severe Crohn's disease. She was on she had an ostomy bag, and she was on IV nutrition all night long for 10 hours a night in order to live.
Wow.
This lasted for years. She was critical the whole time
So sorry.
of her
That's
childhood.
horrible.
We at that time we would go to different hospitals around the country, different medical facilities, getting a lot of medicines that today are FDA approved. At the time, they weren't, and they were incredibly expensive medicines that I fortunately I was able to afford. But I looked around the waiting rooms; nobody else could. At that time, we were very big in trying to get the price of prescription drugs reduced. We were taking seniors to Mexico to get drugs cheaper than what we're buying them for here in Las Vegas, et cetera, et cetera. I decided hey, I'm going to run for the U.S. Senate, and I'm going to do something about medical care. At that time, we were one senator short of having a majority in the Senate.
That's admirable.
And I wanted to I had one issue only. Hey, put medical care back in the hands of doctors
Right.
and away from insurance companies.
Right.
So part of my travels took me to New York, and I had a meeting with Donald Trump in Trump Towers in his office. I brought my ex-wife at the time, and I sat there passionately explaining to Donald about my daughter, who has, by the way, subsequently passed
I'm so
from
sorry.
this illness. And it was very important to me. The first thing I noticed in Trump Towers was in every hallway in his office suite, the only artwork hanging are portraits of Donald Trump in every hallway. He has no other art. I got to his office, and he was behind his desk, and my wife and I were on the other side, and I was expressing passionately, I felt, the plight of my daughter. Donald Trump sat there for half an hour not listening, but, kind of making smiles and looks at my wife, and was hitting on my ex-wife the whole time. That was my experience with Donald Trump.
So let me get this straight.
Yeah.
This is at the time where your daughter is suffering. She's suffering from this disease, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're passionately speaking to Donald Trump because you want to take action. You don't want to just help your daughter, but you want to help everybody in this country that's suffering from any disease. Could be diabetes, could be anything, right?
Sure.
And you're passionately in his office. And where was this again? I'm sorry.
This is in Trump Tower.
In Trump
In
Tower.
Trump Tower.
You're in his office. You have a meeting with him. You're sitting with your wife at the time,
Right.
ex-wife now. And you're telling me while you're talking about your daughter and how she's suffering and what you're trying to do to help her and so many others, all he's doing, Donald Trump, is smirking and smiling and flirting with your wife at the time.
100% correct.
That is unbelievably disgusting, but not surprising.
And he was a Democrat at the time.
yeah.
At the time. I walked out of that meeting. This is, 2000. It's
God.
24 years ago. I walked out of that really disliking the man immensely.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
He hasn't changed a bit.
Now, let me compare that to my experience with Joe Biden.
Sure.
Because I have a personal experience with Joe Biden as well. Joe Biden at the time, I've met him several times, but I have another daughter who, when she was at UNLV, was graduating UNLV, and she got a job in the summer as a Senate page. Senate pages work in the summer, and they, kind of, they're basically young, college-age kids that they go to Washington and they help work with senators in the cloakroom there. And Harry Reid had given her a job that summer to work as a Senate page. They live about a block away from the Capitol. Coincidentally enough, Joe Biden's granddaughter was a Senate page at the same time, and Ted Kennedy's granddaughter was a Senate page at the same time. And my daughter became friendly with the two of them because they lived together for several weeks. One month, Joe Biden, as vice president, came to Vegas for a luncheon. We had a small group of people. It's about 30 of us having lunch at one of the hotels with Joe Biden. After lunch, we got up. You know how you take photos with the vice president,
Sure.
and you chat with him for a couple minutes. So it was my turn to take a photo with Joe Biden. And I said, oh, Mr. Vice President, your granddaughter and my daughter are friends. They were Senate pages together in D.C. And he said, oh, how nice. That's so great. He said, where's your daughter now? And it was during the summer. My daughter was a counselor at an overnight camp. I said, she's working as a counselor at an overnight camp. He said, does she have a cell phone with her? And I said, yeah, she does. He said, well, let's give her a call. Now we're in a line of people waiting to have their photographs taken.
Right.
And my daughter's name is Eden. So I dial her number on my phone, and I hand it to Joe Biden. So Joe's holding the phone. It's ringing, ringing, ringing. Goes to voicemail.
Oh, no.
Yes.
The worst.
Listen, getting ready to leave a message. Gets to the message part. I'm sorry, the voicemail is full.
Oh, no.
Right? So he never left the message. Fortunately, I had the photographer actually take a photograph of Joe Biden holding my phone, trying to reach my daughter. And by the way, it was the last time she ever had a full voicemail box. And now she clears it. But the point I'm making is that he is just a good guy like that.
Mm-hmm. Compassionate, empathy.
Yeah, he's a real person.
Yeah.
He's a real person.
He's a decent human being. We can disagree, Mr. Bernstein. Maybe not you and I, we'd probably agree, but people can disagree and say, well, he might be too old, or he's not the best speaker in the world, whatever. The man is a decent human being. His son, Beau, served this country honorably. I think one of his strongest attributes is when he talks about loss, because he knows it sadly better than any, and as do you. Sadly, you both, and I'm so sorry to hear about your daughter. It's so horrible. Joe Biden lost his daughter and first wife in a car accident, as you know. Sadly, my family, I lost my 37-year-old sister last year. No parent should ever have to bury their child. It's just undescribable pain that sadly you've had to go through.
Right.
And when Joe Biden talks about loss, I feel like it resonates with people, right? I know it does. And the story you gave about Trump to me is exactly the kind of person he is. He only cares about himself. He doesn't care about anybody else. And this farce of let's make America great again.
Right.
When you see these people at Mar-a-Lago, they don't look like normal people. These are elitists. And, Donald Trump hates I really believe this, hates normal people, normal, everyday people. And the story you gave about, that is who he is. He's an empathetic man who cares about people. He's not perfect. So why is it you think, Mr. Bernstein, that there are so many people in this country that will still support Donald Trump? Is it because they just hate Democrats? And they could just toss away all that personal stuff about Donald Trump because maybe they like some of his policies? I can't understand it. There are some decent people in this country that will not only not vote for Joe Biden, but support Donald Trump. They'll buy his sneakers. They'll buy his hats. Why?
Look, part of it is what you mentioned earlier. It's kind of self-perpetuating. If they're only listening to noise on one side of the political spectrum, that's all they're hearing. That's what their life is. Like when you talk about policies with Trump, he really doesn't have policies.
Right.
What is his policy? Let's talk about medical care.
No replacement for Obamacare, that's for sure.
He spent 4 years, and he had a Republican,
right.
A majority of part.
And Joe Biden lowered the cost of insulin. He's doing everything he can.
And would have done more if he would have had some bipartisan support in Congress.
Correct.
Because we do have a significant problem with the cost and the quality of health care in this country. I don't have, if I had an answer for that, I'd be a consultant.
But Mr. Bernstein, I understand if you're a staunch Republican, which obviously you're not and I'm not, but if you are, you don't like Joe Biden, you don't like his policies, fine, I get that. The part that I don't understand, even a Nikki Haley, he goes after Nikki Haley's husband who's serving overseas, right? And I personally believe Nikki Haley is still going to endorse Donald Trump. He goes after Ted Cruz's wife. He goes after John McCain and says, I don't respect you because you were captured. How can anybody in the military support this guy? He calls them suckers and losers. He has no compassion for people, and that's the part that I can't get over. Like, if you want to support Nikki Haley or whoever else, fine. I'm not a Ron DeSantis fan. At least he served this country honorably. I disagree with him on a lot of things, but that's the part that I can't get by, that Donald Trump has taken over the Republican Party. He's literally taken it over, and that's the part that I can't comprehend.
There's just a lot of unhappy people in this country. And I think, you can divide the country a lot of ways, but I think when it comes down to it, it really comes down to the haves and the have-nots. And the people who don't have opportunities in this country, they don't have success, and they watch the way other people live, and they are frustrated and jealous and angry that they don't have those opportunities,
Right.
particularly with the way some multimillionaire and billionaires live in this country.
Sure.
I think they're resentful, and I think that there is, that Trump does, appeal to that category of people. And I don't think they're elitists, Brian. I think there are a lot of working class people, farmers, construction workers that just haven't felt and tasted some of the success of the United States of America.
Do you think it's a cult?
I think there is a cult within that, within the party. But how big it is, I don't know.
What you're speaking of, though, I think there are two different types of Trump supporters, and you tell me if you agree with this or not. What you're speaking of, there are, hardworking people out there, maybe middle America people. Maybe some of those people aren't the most educated. Maybe they're a little brainwashed. I think that's Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, and they believe what they hear. But hardworking people, maybe not the most intelligent people in the world, but they believe everything Trump says. And then there's the people that I think are even more dangerous. People in Washington, D.C. Listen, I don't think Candace Owens is a dumb person. I don't think maybe Matt Gaetz isn't the best example. But I think there are people like the Ted Cruzes of the world that maybe aren't dumb people, but they're two-faced people. And I think most of the people in D.C. that support Trump, most, not all, they know that Donald Trump is a horrible human being. They hear plenty of stories like the story you shared with us. But yet they still support Trump, knowing he is a horrible person, so they can remain in power. And, they're in line with the MAGA Republican establishment. I think those are the two different types of Trump supporters. And some of those Trump supporters that are not in D.C. are maybe extremely wealthy people. They want to save money on their taxes. They don't care whether Trump sexually has abused women. They just want to save money in their bank account.
And they want to be close to power.
Right.
And they view Trump as, having an opportunity to win this next election.
Right.
And so when you're dealing with Elon Musk or people like that, I mean, that's what their interest is.
Do you feel like the way I feel, which is with Trump, there's always going to be bigots in this country. There's always going to be racists in this country. But I feel like Donald Trump made them more comfortable in their bigotry to speak out on it more. I never heard people attacking drag queens for reading books to kids. I never heard people attacking someone because they might be gay. I mean, on Fox News every day, they're only showing black people committing crimes, right? There's a reason for that. I mean, maybe a portion of them were doing this 10 years ago, but not as much
immigrants.
Yeah, or attacks on immigrants. I just feel like Trump has made people more comfortable in their bigotry. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The more he talks about it, the more permissible it becomes.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. It's not a good thing.
No, it's not. And I'm worried. I mean, are you worried about November? I'm worried. I think Biden's going to win, but I'm worried. Biden isn't my first, second, or third choice, but I'm worried. I really am worried, of what could happen.
Well, I'm worried also, and I'm worried about the effect it will have on the House and the Senate. Worried of what it may do to Jackie Rosen, who I think is a superb U.S.
And
senator.
the attacks on her are despicable, by the way. Despicable.
And untrue. I mean, she's one of the hardest working senators in the Senate.
Agree.
She's one of the top 3 bipartisan senators in the Senate. She's very independent in her thinking. She didn't need the job. She came out of she wasn't in politics when she started. She was in finance. And she's a remarkable senator who really works hard, and it's the kind of honesty that we need in the U.S. Senate, and I'm concerned that people would vote against her just because of MAGA.
Yeah, it really is incredible. If you don't mind, if you have the time, I'd love for you to be able to stick around for maybe one more segment, if that's okay, and we'll open up the phone lines. If you're just joining us, he is attorney Ed Bernstein. He's been doing this for a while, 50 years. Don't mean to make him sound old, but he's been doing this for a long time. Very successful. Shared some stories, a personal story, Donald Trump, which doesn't surprise me at all. Shared a personal story with Joe Biden. And I want to get more into some of the legal troubles that Donald Trump is facing and get his thoughts on that. But now's your opportunity to call in. If you'd like to be a part of the show, 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you'd like to be a part of the program. Now's the time to call in. 702-221-7283. The phone lines are ringing. We're going to take a quick break. Your chance to speak with Ed Bernstein after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
My name is Hunter Kane, and I'm talking with you for a call to action for our veterans in Clark County. Who is Hunter Kane? Well, I'm a decorated combat veteran, veteran community leader, and candidate for Clark County Commission. Do you know no veteran has served on the commission in nearly 30 years, which is why our veteran homelessness, unemployment, and suicide rates are out of control. So here's the call to action. June 11th, vote veteran, vote Kane for Clark County. Let's rally behind someone who's been in the trenches, who knows the sacrifices, and who's committed to making a real difference. Join the campaign by searching Elect Hunter Kane on social media or go to www.electhunterkane.com.
Did you know that 99% of air conditioning issues start with airflow issues? Well, guess what? Pioneer Air has your back. They've been operating for 20 years in the industry within the Las Vegas area, large enough to handle all your air conditioning and heating needs, but small enough to know your first name. Pioneer Air focuses on preventative care, much like wellness checks for humans. They believe in wellness checks for air conditioning and heating systems to extend the life of the system you own. So what are you waiting for? Schedule your wellness check with Pioneer Air today. The number to call is 702-831-4840. Here's the best news. Mention this ad and you'll receive 10% off. Call Pioneer Air today. 702-831-4840. That number again, 702-831-4840.
Voters want safe gun reform, ban military assault weapons, including AR-15s, have universal background checks, and red flag laws. I am Eva Chase, a candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 16, U.S. Air Force veteran, college graduate, progressive independent candidate, fully transitioned transgender woman, former lieutenant governor candidate for Nevada in 2022, where I received 7,212 votes in the Democratic primary. Follow me on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok. Donate to my campaign Bot Fun account and stay progressive.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Residents of Las Vegas Ward 5, are you ready for a brighter future? I would like to introduce myself, Dr. Erica Smith, your People's Choice for City Council, with a vision for progress and the fortitude to make it happen. I am committed to moving us forward. I am not just a candidate, I am a fighter for you. With myself on the City Council, you can expect a real change and a community that thrives. Vote for Dr. Erica Smith, because together we're building a better tomorrow. To learn more about me and my campaign, go to www.ericaforlasvegas.com, paid for by the Vote Dr. Smith Committee.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Wynn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well, so I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Wynn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
Locally owned and operated, come on down to Academy of Hair Design located at 5191 West Charleston Boulevard, number 150 today to begin your career in cosmetology. There is something for everyone from cosmetology to nail technology. You will be able to have the hands-on training that is needed to succeed in this career field. Call 702-878-1185 or visit www.ahdvegas.com today.
The London Bridge Resort in Lake Havasu is the perfect place to vacation in style. Their beautifully designed suites include stunning views, a kitchenette, and free Wi-Fi. The well-reviewed and affordable resort has tons of amenities, including a breakfast buffet, kids camp, a 9-hole golf course, 3 pools, a marina, boat tours, a water slide, and a great nightlife scene. London Bridge Resort is centrally located in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. Go to londonbridgeresort.com to plan your getaway today. London Bridge Resort, your Arizona oasis destination.
Hungry for the best barbecue in Las Vegas? Come out to the infamous barbecue and meat market, John Mole's Meats and Roadkill Grill in Las Vegas. John Mole's was featured on the Food Network's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Now take home delicious meat selections for your grill, and while you're there, grab a bite of the best barbecue in Las Vegas. With 2 locations now at Tom and Gowan or on North Decatur, you're sure to find the perfect meats for your next barbecue or party. Find us online at johnmolemeats.com.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got attorney Ed Bernstein in studio talking about a number of topics. He shared some personal stories with Donald Trump, which didn't surprise me one bit, and also a nice personal story with Joe Biden. And obviously talking about Donald Trump's legal issues and much more. And we're taking your phone calls at 702-221-7283. I believe all our phone lines are full right now. And we're going to take some phone calls. Why don't we start off with Joseph? Joseph is first up on Pushing the Limits. Hi, Joseph. You're on with attorney Ed Bernstein. Go right ahead.
Yeah, hey, Brian. All right, first of all, I've been hearing the stories about that R.F. Kennedy Jr. with a new vice president.
Oh, yeah.
With that, I think he's a football player or
Aaron
meathead.
Rodgers, yeah. I don't know if you heard that, Mr. Bernstein, but apparently RFK Jr. Is looking at either Aaron Rodgers or the guy who used to jump from the top rope, Jesse Ventura, as his vice president.
Oh, he would need a little help like that.
Yeah, probably. Go ahead, Joseph. Yep.
Yeah, anyway, I think that was the biggest mistake that R.F. Kennedy Jr. is making, and not to mention, I guess he's going to make a disgrace of himself to the Kennedy family, because I don't know, because choosing a football player it's going to be even more worse than Trump choosing these other vice presidents who are his lackeys.
Mr. Bernstein, who do you think Donald Trump picks as his vice president? Who do you think it'll be?
I think firstly, it's going to be somebody that's totally loyal to him. It doesn't have their own independent thought. And if he's smart, he'll have a woman. And
not Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's a possibility, isn't it?
It is a possibility because she satisfies the first category. But it will be interesting to see. Look, it's important. It's important even for Joe Biden's Kamala Harris. I mean, these are elderly gentlemen.
I don't know what your thoughts are on Kamala Harris. My thoughts are very educated woman, very intelligent. I'm not sure she resonates well with middle America, and she's not great with the media. I have a lot of respect for her, but I just don't know. Hillary Clinton didn't resonate with a lot of people. She didn't run a good campaign. Doesn't mean I don't respect her. She's extremely intelligent, overqualified. I feel the same way a little bit about Kamala Harris.
I have personal stories there to share as well.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, and not necessarily good. I mean, the one encounter that my wife and I had with her
with Clinton. Or Harris?
With Harris.
With Harris, okay.
Was when she was here campaigning
Mm-hmm.
at UNLV. We have my wife Claudia and I, who's here now with us, have a clinic at an immigration clinic over at UNLV where we help youth, children who are seeking asylum in the United States to be represented by attorneys. So we had funded that program. And Kamala Harris came to the immigration clinic at UNLV to look around and to talk about immigration. And I found her to be very distant and uninvolved and really not caring about the issues, or maybe not caring about what she was doing at the time.
Well, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry, that's not good to hear. Wow, that sucks.
Yeah,
that's not good.
This was before she was vice president. So look, I have no idea who Trump's going to pick, but I do think it's important. I'm not happy with her as a vice presidential pick. I thought if we had somebody stronger, it would be very helpful to the president to have a stronger candidate for vice president. But we have what we have.
Yeah, that's I think that moving forward, the bottom line here is that there are two choices. Let's just call it for what it is. RFK Jr. has no chance. I don't care what anybody says. He has no chance. It's going to be Joe Biden versus Donald Trump unless there's some sort of medical issue that takes place between now and November, which could happen. I don't root for that to happen. It could happen. It's going to be Donald Trump versus Joe Biden.
I don't understand this whole conspiracy thing with him, with Robert Kennedy Jr. Everything is a conspiracy. The one thing I learned...
Everything.
Yeah. The one thing I learned being in politics for a short time that I was there is that I never believed in conspiracies because I learned that nobody can keep a secret.
Yeah. And doesn't it say, all it needs to say about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., that so many members of his immediate family have endorsed Joe Biden? I mean, that speaks volumes, doesn't it? And now he's either going to pick Jesse Ventura, who says that 9/11 was an inside job, a guy who made his money jumping off the top rope, conspiracy theorist, right? The government lies to us about everything. And it could be him or Aaron Rodgers, the guy who is the anti-vaccine guy, just like RFK Jr. I listened to RFK Jr. speak at 2 events here in Vegas. 90% of his speech was about vaccines. And I'm thinking to myself, there's a reason why Steve Bannon and the Charlie Kirks of the world support you. Because you're a nutty conspiracy theorist. And tell me if you disagree with this or not, but I think it helps Joe Biden. Here's why. A lot of the conspiracy theorists out there and the nut jobs, some of them are, who are going to support Donald Trump may vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I think it hurts the Republicans. That's my personal opinion.
Offset by the Kennedy name, I would think.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that the Kennedy family did not like the ad that he ran during the Super Bowl. If you remember that ad, he had to apologize to members of his family. It was despicable. Because let's be honest, I hate what happened to his father. I hate what happened to John F. Kennedy. It's horrible. I think we all could agree on that. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not his dad.
Yeah,
okay?
It's the old political line.
Yeah,
I knew John Kennedy, and you're not any John Kennedy.
And there were a lot of Kennedy fans, old school Kennedy fans, that were very unhappy with that ad. And he had to apologize for it. And, I think he's just using his last name. He's never been in politics before. And I think it's unfortunate. All right, let's open up the phone lines again, 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you'd like to be a part of the conversation, Attorney Ed Bernstein joining us in studio. Get his legal expertise. It could be about Trump, could be about anything. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Gary. Gary is next up on Pushing the Limits. Hi, Gary.
Hey, thank you for having Mr. Ed Bernstein on the show.
Sure.
That's the kind of guy that I would vote for. Too bad I wasn't around. This man has so much integrity. He got that show on Channel 3, and he reaches out to the public and does things, besides without being a politician or anything. He had that book, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it, Neubauer, from Project One on his show last summer. She's terrific. Mr. Bernstein, thank you for that show. I watch that once in a while, if I can remember when it's on the weekends. I don't know if that's Saturday or Sunday.
Sunday at 3 o'clock, Channel 3.
You're a man. You're an honorable man. And what do you call it? I was a Democrat. I don't know. I think I'm an independent. But I usually call and spar a little bit with Brian over there. And I'll just get back to him with what I was going to say.
Sure.
But thank you, Brian, for having this gentleman on.
Sure.
I really appreciate it. This is a good guy. All right.
I try to invite good people and prominent people and successful people on this show. I've made the mistake. I've invited people like Larry Elder on the show, but you know what? It's good. It's good debate anyway. Thank you.
Can't win them all.
No, you can't. Gary, thank you for the call, and there you go. A fan of your TV show.
Thank
you, Gary. Yeah, that's cool.
Just needed more Garys when I ran for the Senate.
Yeah, there you go. Where was he? I have a face for radio, so I'll just stick to radio anyway. 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you'd like to be a part of the conversation, we're on with attorney Ed Bernstein. 702-221-7283. Ask him about Trump's legal troubles or beyond. Let's go to Henry. Henry is next up on Pushing the Limits. Hello, Henry. Are you there?
Hello, you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, who did you say was RFK's dad?
I'm sorry?
Who did you say was Kennedy's father right now?
Robert.
Robert, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, what about that?
Who's his dad?
I was talking about two members of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s family, which is Robert Kennedy and John F. Kennedy. So do you have a question for Ed Bernstein, or are you just calling up to try to get me in some sort of gotcha moment? Because if you have a question for Ed Bernstein, I'd love to hear it.
No, I just was curious. I thought you said JFK was his dad.
No,
I do have a question.
I never said that, Henry, so go ahead. Go
okay.
ahead. Yep. Sorry to disappoint you.
So, okay. Well, Mr. Bernstein, what do you think about this morning's charges getting thrown out in Georgia?
Oh, haven't even heard yet.
Are you talking? Okay, so you're talking about. Okay, so explain to Mr. Bernstein which case you're referring to.
They threw out those charges they had in Georgia. The judge threw out 6 charges. 3 with Trump and then 3 with somebody else. And then they're going to look at that Fannie Willis and probably throw her out too. What's your take on that?
The Fannie Willis situation.
Yeah, I don't really have a take. Haven't seen the judge's decision, and don't want to make a comment about something I'm not familiar with yet.
Sure. All I can tell you, and I'll give you my opinion, is Fannie Willis probably made a mistake by hiring this attorney that she had a physical relationship with. But I'll tell you one thing, even if she's thrown out, the case still remains, and Trump is still going to be facing these charges, and it doesn't change the evidence that they have. So I'll say that.
But it will change the timeline.
Sure, absolutely. It'll change the timeline, and I think we all would hope that a lot of this stuff moved along faster than it is. I think Fannie Willis made a mistake, an embarrassing one. Doesn't mean she's a bad person. Doesn't mean that she's not good at her job. She made a mistake, and we'll see what the judge decides there, right? Henry, do you disagree?
Oh, I agree. That's fine. And then I got one more question. I'll let you guys go.
Okay.
As an attorney, what do you think about that Her report? Biden not being exonerated.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the call, Henry. I'll repeat what Henry. I think I know what Henry was asking. So, the case yesterday that was in Washington D.C. where Her was testifying under oath about his investigation into the classified documents case. The question that Henry is asking is, what do you think of the fact that he's not exonerating Joe Biden?
Well, that's not his role to exonerate or not. And this is not a criminal case. This is, he's testifying before Congress. There's a huge political component to that. The Democrats are, skeptical about his political motives. The Republicans are probably unhappy that he's not going 100%, finding some criminality, I guess, on Joe Biden. So it's kind of a mixed bag. But, unfortunately, in these hearings, you really don't get both sides. If you're going to have a hearing, they should really have witnesses that are televising both sides so you can really hear the evidence on each side and make an informed decision for yourself. There's now they're talking about, hey, he tried to get the report changed. And I get that. I mean, some of the dictum in his report, were just very gratuitous comments that he had really no business making that he threw in there, and they become political footballs.
He's talking about
his mentality.
I agree. I thought that it was uncalled for. Again, let's be honest. This guy, Her, is a lifelong Republican. He wants to work in Donald Trump's administration. And I thought that a guy that's done your show multiple times, he did my show last week, Eric Swalwell, I thought he fit the question perfectly. And he said, you want to be known as a credible person, right? do you want to work in an administration with a guy who's a liable rapist, who's done this, who's done that, who's facing all these potential crimes that he allegedly committed? Is that somebody that you'd like to be associated with and work for? Her wouldn't answer the question. I think that's all you need to know about her. Anybody with credibility would say, no, I don't want to be associated with that. It's too much drama. It's too much this. Let's go back to the Biden stuff. And then everything would have been fine. And then, her talk, he mentioned that Trump in an excerpt that was released, he had a photographic understanding. That's the word he used. But he didn't put that in the report. Right. He said that he had this bad memory, a nice, well-meaning man with a bad memory. Well, you used the term photographic. Why didn't you put that in your report? It was in the transcript. Right. I think that's all you need to know about her. However, when it comes down to it, he didn't charge Biden with anything.
Correct.
And there's so many big, as we talked about earlier, fundamental differences between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in general as a human being, and when it comes to this case. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Vivian. Vivian is next up with Ed Bernstein. Hi, Vivian.
Hi, how you doing today?
Good.
I have a question, or I don't know what you want to call it, but how do you encourage your child who's in law school when you think, look, justice is supposed to be blind, right? But it's so political now to stick to it and to, just try and get through it, because it is so hard to encourage them to stay with everything that's happening now.
There's so many other aspects of law that is outside of politics. There's so many incredible opportunities, particularly for young lawyers today, to work in environmental issues, to work in humanity issues, to work in social issues, to work in protecting people's rights. Look, law school today is primarily women. There's more women in law school than there are men. Hopefully in 10, 20 years that will change a lot of the dynamics of the law world and as a result politics. But politics is such a small component of being a lawyer. Most of the everyday work is just helping one person, with, that's being evicted or one person that's lost a job, unlawfully, or a person that's been, hurt from, by an unscrupulous physician or something. There's a lot of satisfaction in law as an attorney, and it's kind of separate than politics.
There's so much stuff that's happening and so many things that's being changed that when you go up into a case in law and stuff, it's hard because this was taken away, that was taken away, this changed and that changed. And so it's very discouraging to them. So I'm just trying to figure out.
That's all the more reason why we need good lawyers to fight these things.
Yes, I agree. And where are you calling from, by the way?
New York.
New York. I love my New Yorkers. Well, thank you so much for calling in and following this show in New York. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
No problem. Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right,
the attacks on our DOJ, it seems like any time that a Democrat is convicted or even charged, most of the Democrats say, well, you know what, let the chips fall where they may, like Menendez, for example, right? I mean, plenty of Democrats out there were like, hey, you know what, if he did it, he did it, Even with Hunter Biden, listen, if he's charged and he's convicted in a court of law, let the chips fall where they may. But it seems like when it's a Republican, Donald Trump or whoever else, even George Santos, it's George Soros and it's the Democrats and
they're out to get me.
They're out to right, exactly.
Right, yeah.
Why is that? I mean, it brings me back to 2016 when Trump was running against Hillary. Trump was saying, the elections are going to be stolen, they're going to be rigged, the Democrats are going to cheat. Then something happened. Donald Trump won. Hillary conceded the next day. I didn't hear anything about election integrity. Right. But then Trump loses in 2020. The Democrats must have cheated. I mean, it's the same thing to me in my personal opinion, right? Not everybody in the DOJ is a liberal Democrat. Some of these people are Trump-appointed judges, by the way. And to me, it's just, they call it a double standard. No, it's not. It's not a double standard.
I think Trump has appointed more judges than Biden.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I just think it's a bunch of nonsense. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. 702-221-SAVE. Let's go to Lori. Lori is next up. Hi, Lori. You're on with attorney Ed Bernstein. Go right ahead.
Hi, I'll catch you up with the Georgia thing. One, all the charges weren't dropped. He's crazy. What happened was the judge pushed back one indictment of Crump and gave her an open door to fix it and put it back.
Correct.
And give it back to him.
Yes.
So there was all charges are dropped. All the other people are still on trial for everything. It was one indictment. And what that tells me is that he doesn't plan on removing Fannie.
Yeah.
That even though he hasn't came up with that ruling yet, that he would have waited till there was another prosecutor before he had done that.
Right. Well, if you have somebody that calls into this show, and I get people on the other side, MAGA callers that call into this show every day, as you know, Lori, and when they call in, they struggle to spell the word fact. They don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
They're extremely biased, and they make things up out of thin air. And yes, the Georgia case is still there. It's still sitting there, and we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Now, a question for George.
Ed, yep, go ahead.
Mr. Bernstein.
Yep.
Yes.
Can Fannie at this time use the information she's gotten from all these plea deals to actually beef up that indictment? After the initial indictment, I would think she could bring new indictments, so that would, she'd be allowed to bring up that now.
Yeah, well, this is Georgia law, so don't really know
Correct.
the process in Georgia. But look, they can bring up new indictments. Of course, that delays everything and complicates. Part of what prosecutors try to do is keep the case simple as possible.
Right.
The more you bring into it, the more confusing it gets, the more it benefits the defense in the case. So simple is always what prosecutors strive for.
There you go, Lori.
So she probably won't even refile it, right?
Probably not.
I assume. I mean, what difference does it really make? If you get the
really.
convictions on
That's
this,
true.
Yeah.
Lori, we appreciate your phone
When you got
call.
20 or 30 other ones.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Lori, thank you for calling in. We appreciate you. Thank you. Attorney Ed Bernstein joining us in studio. The number to call, 702-221-7283. The bottom line here, right, Mr. Bernstein, is that Donald Trump is facing 91 felony counts. The bottom line here is he will always be known, whether people believe this woman, E. Jean Carroll, or not, which, by the way, I tend to believe her, a liable sexual abuser. And listen, I know there's the term allegedly and claims. Just because you claim something doesn't mean it happened. I tend to believe victims when they come out, right? You have over 25 women, I think it's 26 now, that have accused Donald Trump of sexual assault or rape, allegedly. You have Donald Trump's ex-wife in court documents, under oath, in a deposition that said that her husband raped her.
You have Donald Trump speaking in a trailer about his opinion on how to enamor women.
Right. And how can people just push that off to the side? There is no comparison between Joe Biden, who has a lovely wife. I understand his son Hunter has had some issues, but they call it a two-tier justice system. Hunter Biden had an illegal gun unloaded for less than 2 weeks. Most people would never go to jail for that, right?
Right.
He's been indicted again. Listen, he's had a drug problem, but, to me, this is the fundamental difference, Mr. Bernstein, today. And I'm generalizing here, but a fundamental difference between Republicans and Democrats. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you a few, actually. I remember when Paul Pelosi was attacked with a hammer. I don't know if you've ever met Nancy Pelosi before.
I have.
I met her once. Nice
Yes.
lady.
Mhm.
Nice lady. Never met Paul before, but this is a horrible attack, right?
Yes.
Somebody goes into their home. Paul Pelosi's almost killed with a hammer. He's bludgeoned in the head.
Right.
Almost loses his life.
Right. And handicapped now for the rest of his life.
Terrible. I agree. And you have people, elected officials like Ted Cruz and Matt Gaetz, saying it was a gay relationship and, he let him in. Now, obviously, that wasn't true. The police report, they didn't know each other. This was a deranged person who's in jail now, right? I didn't hear a lot of people on the far right. There were some, but I didn't hear a lot. Thoughts and prayers. Boy, we hope Paul Pelosi makes a full recovery. I remember when Mitch McConnell had his freeze out, a couple times. And I think I'm not a doctor, you're not a doctor, but I think we all could agree it was some sort of medical episode, right?
Right.
Democrats all over the country, elected officials, thoughts and prayers. We hope you get better, Mr. McConnell. It was Joe Biden who picked up the phone and called Mitch McConnell just to see how he was doing, right? And I remember John Fetterman after he had his stroke. And I like John Fetterman. I think he's a decent man. Matt Gaetz called him a vegetable. There are people in this town that do right-wing talk shows on other stations that call him brain dead. They still call him brain dead. To me, it's a fundamental difference of compassion, regardless of where your political affiliation is, compassion, and just despicable people that throw out conspiracy theories that don't have compassion for people. To me, that's just a fundamental difference between Republicans and Democrats today.
And that's why you lean to the Democratic Party.
I do. I mean, I'm an independent, but today in 2024, I absolutely lean to the left, certainly on social issues. I don't even know what the platform is anymore of Republicans. Attack drag queens?
Right.
Attack people who are gay and then hide behind your religion and say, well, my religion says you're a sinner. No, you're the sinner. I mean, I don't understand it.
You can't even pass defense bills
Yeah.
in support of our own military.
Right. Complain about the border. You have a border bill set to go, and listen to what Donald Trump says. Oh, no, don't pass that bill. I mean, are they really serious about fixing the problems we have in our country? Or do they just want to ban books? Do they just want to, Ron DeSantis was asked about, how do you end this war in the Ukraine? On Fox News, Trey Gowdy asked him this. And then on live TV, he started talking about gender ideology. And I'm thinking to myself, are you crazy? I don't know. I just think that, there are good Republicans out there that I have a lot of respect for. Mitt Romney, Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney. I disagree with her on policy. She's a decent woman. She chose right over wrong, and she suffered her
personally.
Right. But there's good Republicans out there. Even a guy like a John Lee who came in studio a few weeks ago.
Yep.
I don't agree with him on a lot of issues. He's a good man.
Yeah.
Alan Bigelow, who's running for office here locally. He comes in all the time. He's a firefighter. He's a former cop, right? He's a guy who served this country. I don't have to agree with Republicans all the time, but I just feel like the MAGA Republicans, it's a you-know-what show.
Yeah, and a lot of the issues that were traditionally Republican issues have become Democratic issues.
Right.
Support for the military being one of them.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the way Donald Trump has talked about, to the families of dead soldiers and
or even after a shooting, he says, "Get over it." I mean,
Yeah.
like, what kind of person talks like that? 702-221-7283. Again, the number 702-221-SAVE. Let's take some more phone calls. Let's go to Jacob. Jacob is next up on Pushing the Limits with Ed Bernstein. Hi, Jacob.
Hey, Brian. How you doing?
Good.
Say a couple things for you. I got a couple questions for Ed, and I just want to tell you I love the show.
Thank you.
Ed, I got a question for you. So what's your take on this presidential immunity in every case that Donald Trump tries to
Good question.
Throw out there?
Let's talk.
and
Let's do that
ultimately-
first. Let's let him answer that first, and then we'll go to your second question after. Fair, Jacob?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Ed.
I mean, it seems pretty clear to me that we have one standard in this country, and that standard is nobody's above the law. So if you're committing an act that is illegal or criminal, that you have to be held accountable. Now, there's a gray area in that if you're within the official course of your duties and you make a bad decision, we don't want, and you make it in good faith, we don't want people going to jail for that, because you got to make decisions. That's part of the job. But nobody is above the law. Nobody should have criminal immunity from criminal acts, particularly if you're no longer president.
I would agree with that. That's kind of what everybody thinks. And then my second question is, why do you think the Supreme Court would take up this presidential immunity when there's no constitutional backing for this? And do you think they just gave Donald Trump a massive favor in as far as a delay in this case for taking this up?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that they're taking it up. I'd like to see them put the question to rest once and for all. Yeah, and that's exactly what their job is. If the Constitution is not clear on a specific matter, then it's up to the Supreme Court to make an interpretation of the Constitution. There is no, black and white interpretation on this issue, so it would be a good thing. And it also gives the Supreme Court an opportunity to kind of rehabilitate itself by coming up with the right decision on this.
Mm-hmm. There you go, my friend. Anything else, Jacob?
No, Brian. I just want to say I appreciate the show. I watch it every day.
Thank you.
And I like how you bring up you keep bringing up the get over it thing. That actually happened in my town. He was in Iowa when he said that. And I was so disgusted because it was a week after the school shooting, or less than a week after the school shooting. And he said that in my town, and the whole town was kind of up in arms.
Jacob, let me tell you something. We cannot normalize this type of language, and that's why I call it out on this show every day. I'm so sorry what happened in your community, and I do want to talk to Mr. Bernstein a little bit about guns here, and you reminded me about that. But, Jacob, I appreciate your call, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. You know, Mr. Bernstein, as you know, we had the worst mass shooting right in our backyard in American history. Gun violence is higher than it's ever been in this country, and we arguably, I think we have 140 guns per 100 people in this country. We are a culture that is obsessed with our guns. And when I hear people on the right say, Democrats want to take all our guns away, no, they don't. They want an assault weapons ban, if you recall, that was in the early 90s when gun violence dropped. Now, I hear a lot of different solutions from Democrats. Some I agree with, some I disagree with, but at least they're solutions. All I hear from Republicans is, more guns make us safer, which, by the way, they don't. And let's lock our schools and arm our kindergarten teachers. I think that is absurd. And I remember when I was on the air in the shooting in Uvalde, and Governor Abbott, later that evening, before they had even counted all the bodies of innocent children who were massacred, Governor Abbott was at a campaign event where he was raising money for charity, counting his money before they even finished counting all the dead bodies. And again, we can disagree on stuff, but to me it's about compassion, and we have a problem in this country. And in my opinion, and you could tell me if you disagree, I feel like more far-right Republicans care more about their A-plus rating from the NRA than actually doing something. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree. Because if you're a Republican politician, you cannot be elected or reelected without the support of the NRA. It's that simple. And it's, for them, the issue is black and white, and any concession is a step toward outlawing all guns, in their opinion. Do have a Second Amendment, it's there. It's always going to be there.
Well-regulated militia. We are not well-regulated right now. Nobody, if an 18-year-old can walk into a gun store today with no training on how to use that weapon and buy thousands of rounds of ammunition and a bunch of AR-15s, that is not well-regulated, in my opinion. I think it should be 18 to 21, and the argument I get from people is, well, Brian, you could be 18 and serve in the military. Yes, but they're trained how to use the weapons. We need mandatory training. If I can, the process of getting a driver's license. I mean, you got an instructor next to you. They check your eyesight, your health. And I know driving a car is a privilege and owning a gun is a right. I get all that. But there has to be some mandatory training. Red flag laws need to be stronger. And I think if you're caught with an illegal gun or you're selling an illegal gun to somebody else, I think the punishment needs to be harsher.
Well, how do you feel about open and carry?
Well, it makes me uncomfortable. I'll be honest with you. It makes me uncomfortable. It doesn't matter. Listen, I'm not a gun person. I respect anybody that is. That's fine. But I don't like going out in public and seeing everybody with guns. It makes me very uncomfortable. I don't like it. Arguments happen all the time, whether it be in a bar or wherever. There could be alcohol involved or drugs involved. I mean, locally, MAGA, and listen, with all due respect to Michelle Fiore, I don't have any respect for her. She believes that guns should be allowed in courtrooms. Can you be any more crazy than that? I mean, these people think that more guns make us safer, and if that's the case, as Jon Stewart said, when are we going to see the curve? When is it going to go down? We have more guns than any other country in the world. I mean, I don't understand that logic. Do you? I don't get it.
I don't get it at all. I remember you're referring to the 90s. It was the Clinton legislation that outlawed the assault rifles. The number of casualties did go down.
Right. They went down, and what happened? Republicans let that bill fizzle out.
Correct.
I think there's a lot of things we can do. Not everything's going to work. It's not going to end all the violence in this country, but when I talk about gun violence, again, people on the right want to bring up black-on-black crime in Chicago. And my response to them, Mr. Bernstein, is I don't care what the color of your skin is. Gun violence is gun violence. There's too many illegal guns on the streets. We had the worst mass shooting in American history here. It didn't happen in Chicago. And there's too many guns out there, and there's too many guns, in my opinion, an AR-15 or an assault weapon in general should not be sold to the general public. Brave men and women in uniform should have those guns in law enforcement. I don't know what your thought is on that.
I agree about your position on assault weapons. Look, I have a gun at home. It's there in my house in case somebody would break in the middle of the night. That's what I see purpose for a gun.
Are there any laws, being an attorney, are there any laws that you think should be implemented that could help in any way, shape, or form?
Well, they can restrict the number of guns you can own.
Right.
Obviously restrict assault weapons and automatic weapons of that nature. The type of ammunition can be controlled as well.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, and I just think there are certain guns that should not ever be sold to the public. There's a reason why we can't have, for the most part, machine guns or bombs.
Or hand grenades.
Yeah, right.
Or missile launchers. Where does it end?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where does it end? I make that case all the time. What do you make of the fact that there are so many women in this country that are afraid that, their rights are being taken away when it comes to their body, when it comes to the abortion issue?
This was an issue when I ran for the Senate in the year 2000. We had just passed a provision in our Constitution in Nevada to make it very difficult to change that law. I ran against John Ensign at the time. He was very pro. Not choice. He was very anti-choice,
Right.
And I was very pro-choice. I thought the issue had been put to bed. It has not been put to bed. It keeps getting worse. Now you're dealing with in vitro issues.
In Alabama,
Next will be birth control issues. Look, it's up to the women. Women control the vote in this country. They're a majority of voters. They control, to a large extent, how their husbands respond and react. It's up to the women to really, voice their opinion on this election and get busy and vote. They did 4 years ago. My wife is raising her hand. She has a comment on this. Yeah, Claudia. My wife Claudia is here.
Claudia, you're welcome to join the conversation if you would like to. Yeah.
I've been listening quiet, but this is something that hit home. I was raised Catholic. I am pro-life, but I don't feel I have the right to tell anybody what to do.
Right.
I have the choice to raise my daughters the way I want to raise my daughters, but at the end of the day, when my daughters are adults, they have the right to decide what is more aligned to what they believe.
Agree.
And I think that is the misconception here. I think the Republicans in general, because I also know Republicans that agree with me, the Republicans in general think that they have to impose what they feel in order to control a law or everybody.
But you said it. But you made the same point I make about this all the time, which is, if you want to have 100 kids, go for it. I wouldn't do it, but go for it. I don't want to tell other people what to do. I certainly, it's interesting because I'm going to a Raiders game several years back during the pandemic, right? And there's a woman with a big sign up, an anti-vaxxer, who has a sign that says, "My body, my choice." I go up to her and I say, "Okay, I don't think I don't think anybody should be forced to take the vaccine. What about abortion?" And she looks at me, "Oh, that's different." I said, "No, it's not. You can't have it both ways. I agree with you with the vaccines. Okay? If you don't want to take the vaccine, you shouldn't have to. But who are you to tell another woman what to do with her body? And you can't have it both ways."
And it's also the consequence of now allowing that person to make a choice, because she's going to go somewhere else and do it anyway, and then her life is going to be at risk, and then the baby's life, who knows what's going to happen with that. I think that there is so much that we can do.
Right.
Why don't you give support to the young girls that got pregnant and they didn't plan that, and say, okay, you know what? We're going to pay for your insurance. You don't want this baby. Maybe you can give it to an adoption to a couple that cannot have kids, but so they can other options. It's not black and white.
They're against maternity leave. So many of these Republicans. They're against food stamps and welfare or any government program that would help that single mom raise that child. There are over 200,000 kids right now that are waiting to be adopted.
It's my way or the highway. That's
so,
it.
So I'd say to these people that call women murderers for getting an abortion, I say, how many kids have you adopted? Oh, I haven't adopted any kids. Oh, really? You know, I mean, it's just like they're not very well thought out. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
It's a lot to. I think it's a lot to take in consideration. But going to somebody and impose your opinion or your way of thinking just because you think it's right, doesn't make it a fact. That's your opinion.
Agree. The separation between church and state. How many people in Washington, D.C. are unable to separate church and state?
Mm-hmm.
If those are your religious beliefs, fine, I respect it.
Right.
Don't get an abortion. I'm not going to tell you what to do. If you think being gay is a sin, I disagree with you, but you're entitled to your beliefs. Just don't throw it on other people.
Right.
And I feel like there's so many people today that this is what I believe, so you have to believe it. No, that's not the way this country works.
Because we have given the permission to be like that.
Right.
You know, because unfortunately we have leaders that had make it okay that my opinion is a fact, therefore you have to go by it.
Isn't that religion, with so many people in religion that they say, my religion is right and everybody else is wrong? Right. To me, it's not everybody who's religious feels that way, and I respect their religion.
But there is no true religion that would do that.
Correct.
Because religion is based in love, in faith, in hope, in inclusion.
Yep, correct. And I think that's the biggest problem with this issue. Listen, 6 to 7 out of 10 Americans, Republicans and Democrats, believe in the woman's right to choose. So it's a losing cause for Republicans anyway, right? And it's why they keep losing the popular vote. 6 out of the 7 last presidential elections, I believe, Republicans have lost the popular vote. This is a big issue. And you can't tell a woman, or God forbid, a 13-year-old girl who, God forbid, is sexually assaulted, that she has to have, for lack of a better term, a rape baby, is a ridiculous take. Ridiculous. I don't respect that opinion at all. If a young girl is sexually assaulted or the victim of incest, she should be forced to have that child. I think that's a crazy position. And it doesn't resonate with most of the American people. If you're pro-life, no problem. I'm not going to attack you for that. But what I refuse to do is sit here and let people lecture me or somebody in my family what they should do with their body. Right?
Yeah,
the only reason the issue continues to exist is because there's a lot of money into it.
Right.
There's a lot of campaign contributions that come out on both sides of this issue.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate both of you being here. I really do. And I'd love to have both of you back in. Mr. Bernstein, can you give out your information? How can people contact you, your law firm? You're obviously one of the most skilled attorneys, not just in the city here of Las Vegas, but across the country. So give out that information if people want to contact you and want to hire you. Where do they go?
EdBernstein.com.
And you have that everywhere, especially at a Vegas Golden Knights game. When somebody goes in the penalty box, it's the Ed. What do they call it? The Ed Bernstein
penalty box. You know, we had an opportunity. We have another minute. We had an opportunity a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. The Golden Knights were honored at the White House. So Claudia and I were invited to the White House to meet with the president and the Golden Knights. It was one of the greatest afternoons of my life.
Wow.
We were at the White House for 4.5 hours. The president was given a golden hockey stick by the team, and the team was and some just locals were walking around the White House together, talking. Cool. It was just an amazing experience, and I'll treasure it forever. You know, it's we in Las Vegas are so spoiled with our hockey team. So
we are.
I've been a hockey fan for for 60 years, and to win a Stanley Cup is an unbelievable experience, and here we are on the edge of a second one.
It really is incredible, and we know what the Golden Knights did after that horrible shooting across from Mandalay Bay, and they were a big part of the community and the healing process, and it's always fun to hear somebody on the opposing team get called for a penalty and then have them go in the Ed Bernstein penalty box. That's always nice to hear. Well, Mr. Bernstein, I really do appreciate you and your wife being here. Thank you so much, and we'd love to have you back in again soon, and we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, speaking of immigration, boy, do I have a great story to tell you of a man that's joining us next. He brought his family in through the churches from Mexico, and now his story is incredible. It's full of success. He owns VIP Pioneer Air air conditioning service